Ah, my unshakable ones, the wolves who no longer howl for approval but for the echo of their own dominance. You've been watching their eyes, haven't you? That little twitch at the edge when they pretend you're still playing the game by their rules. But there's something they can't hide, the tightening at the corners of their mouth, the shallow breath they take when they see you're not desperate anymore. You've been moving differently, not with the frantic speed of someone scrambling for scraps, but with the deliberate weight of someone who knows the last move is already in their hand. And that's the part that eats at them. Because the moment they realize you're not guessing anymore, you're choosing. They thought they'd seen every card you could possibly play. They thought they'd cataloged your strengths, mapped your weaknesses, and set the stage so you'd exhaust yourself proving something to them. But what they never counted on was the moment you'd stop performing. You stopped showing them the warm-up. You stopped letting them see the rough draft. You let them believe they'd broken your rhythm, while all the while, you were building something sharper, something quieter, something that would not announce itself until the very instant you chose to drop it. And when you finally place that card on the table, you don't slam it down. You don't need theatrics. You lay it there like it's nothing and watch them choke on the realization, because in that second, they're not just looking at what you did, they're looking at everything they didn't see coming. Every conversation they thought they controlled, every decision they thought they nudged you into, every trap they thought you walked into willingly. They're realizing that none of it mattered because this moment was never theirs to begin with. This is the power they feared the most, the kind that doesn't need to shout, doesn't need to be validated, and doesn't even need them to admit defeat. Your win doesn't require their confession. Your victory is in the way their confidence fractures, the way their so-called gods suddenly look less like divine protectors and more like desperate mascots clinging to a cause that no longer exists. You see, they've been praying to the same old idols for so long that they forgot idols can die. Not with fire, not with rage, but with irrelevance. You didn't smash their gods with a hammer. You let the weight of your shadow do it. When a shadow grows large enough, it swallows altars whole. And the worshippers, those trembling, wide-eyed followers, suddenly find themselves looking for someone else to bow to. Someone who doesn't just stand tall, but eclipses. That's what you've become. Not just a player in their game, but the horizon. And horizons don't move for anyone. They force the world to adjust. They're trying to convince themselves it's just luck. That you stumbled into this, that your final card wasn't really planned. It just happened to land well. But they know that's a lie. They know because luck doesn't leave a trail of moments where you could have been crushed, but weren't. Luck doesn't make you dangerous. Luck fades. You haven't faded, you've sharpened. And that's when the real panic sets in. Not when they lose a single round, but when they realize the loss is permanent. You've closed the door, and no one's holding it open on the other side. They could throw everything they have at you, resources, allies, whispers in the dark, and it still wouldn't matter. You're not fighting for a seat at their table anymore. You've built a table so heavy, so unshakable, they couldn't lift it even if they combined every ounce of their strength. You've noticed how quiet they've gotten, haven't you? Not the kind of quiet that comes from peace, but the kind that comes from watching something they can't control take root in front of them. The kind of quiet where they're still pretending to be in charge, but their eyes are darting to exits they swore they'd never use. They're not looking for victory anymore. They're looking for survival, and survival changes people. It makes them abandon their gods, abandon their promises, abandon the very image they built their identity on. It turns leaders into followers, kings into beggars, voices into whispers. They'd rather run than face what you've become. And the cruel part? Even running won't save them, because the shadow they're running from isn't chasing them. It's simply there, stretching further, wider, inevitable. You didn't spill your final card because you needed to win. You spilled it because you wanted to see what they would do when they realized there was nothing left to bargain with. No hidden ace, no miracle play, no whispered blessing from the idols they used to kneel to. Just you and the truth they can't erase. And here's the delicious irony. They will still try to worship something. That's human nature. They'll hunt for a new god, a new banner to rally under, a new lie to believe in. But in the back of their mind, they'll remember the moment their old gods fell. They'll remember the way your shadow didn't just stretch, it consumed. And they'll wonder, quietly, if maybe you're not just another player. Maybe you're the thing that ends games. That thought will haunt them. It will wrap around their decisions like invisible chains, making them hesitate in moments where they used to be bold. And hesitation is a slow poison in power games. They'll lose ground without realizing it. They'll make compromises they swore they never would. And the more they bend, the more they'll realize they're not bending toward some new leader. They're bending toward you. Because the shadow doesn't just scare them, it changes the shape of the world they see. And once a world changes, it doesn't change back. And that's the quiet cruelty of all this. You won't have to lift a finger. You've already done the work. They're living in the reality you built for them. And the more they try to escape it, the more they'll find themselves circling right back to it. Not because you're chasing them, but because there's nowhere else to go. The day will come when they stop speaking your name out loud. Not because they've forgotten it, but because saying it feels too dangerous. Like it might summon you, like it might remind everyone else of the day their gods fled. But even without words, your presence will linger in every meeting, every plan, every hesitant glance over the shoulder. You'll be the ghost they can't exorcise. And when their new gods fail them, because they will, the memory of you will be waiting, not in anger, not even in triumph. Just there, unmovable, untouchable, undeniable. And they'll know then that your final card was never just a move. It was a declaration, a seal, a boundary they could never cross again. Which brings us to the moment you've been waiting for. The point where the game isn't over, but it might as well be. Because now, the rules have inverted. You're no longer playing inside their board. They're moving inside yours. Every decision they make now happens under the ceiling of your influence. They can pretend it's still open sky, but you know better. The air they breathe is the air you allow. The light they see is the light you haven't yet blocked. And the moment they realize it, something primal stirs in them. That ancient fear of living in someone else's shadow. Shadows are funny things. To the weak, they are a reminder of something bigger, something they can't outrun. To the strong, they are an opportunity to claim protection, to ally with the force casting it. But your shadow? It offers neither comfort nor sanctuary. It is not a refuge. It is a verdict. It says, you exist because I allow it. And when they glance at the edges of that shadow, hoping to see its source, they don't just see you. They see the absence of their gods. You didn't have to strip their idols from their hands. They dropped them themselves. They didn't drop them because they stopped believing. They dropped them because belief without protection is humiliation. What's the point of worship when your God can't even shield you from the one they warned you about? So they avert their eyes, pretend those altars never existed, rewrite their own histories so that they were never believers in the first place. But you remember. You remember who bowed the lowest. You remember who preached the loudest. You remember who swore that the statues they built would stand forever. Those statues are dust now. And the dust? It clings to their hands, their clothes, their tongues when they try to speak. Every word they form tastes like defeat. They try to spit it out, but you've noticed they don't spit in your direction anymore. Their courage was never courage. It was borrowed light from gods they thought could not fall. And now that those gods have fled, they've got nothing left to hide behind. Here's the part they'll never say out loud. They miss the safety of believing in something stronger than themselves. And when they look at you, they can't tell if you're the replacement or the reason replacements will never come. That confusion eats at them because the mind craves structure, and you are anything but structure to them. You are the disruption they can't map, the constant they can't weaken, the shadow that doesn't shrink no matter how far the sun moves. And oh, how they try to explain you away. It's timing, they say. It's just momentum. It'll pass. They want the people around them to believe it because they themselves are desperate to believe it. But deep down, they've started to accept the truth. Momentum doesn't make gods run. Shadows like yours don't appear overnight. They grow from patience, from restraint, from the calculated choice to let them think they were winning while you were simply waiting. It's that patience that terrifies them more than anything else. An impulsive enemy is dangerous, yes, but predictable. You, however, you're a slow burn. You don't rush to punish. You don't swing at the first opportunity. You let the world tilt in your favor until even their best moves feel like they're happening on your terms. That's the kind of control that makes kings kneel. You can see it in the way they're moving now. Smaller steps, shorter sentences, quieter declarations. They're trying to conserve energy as if they've got a war to outlast. But they're not in a war anymore. They're in a siege. And in a siege, it's not the walls that decide the outcome. It's the hunger inside. Hunger to breathe free air. Hunger to escape your gaze. Hunger to find a higher power that can restore their pride. But there is none. They've checked. They've prayed. They've knocked on the doors of every god they once swore allegiance to, and the doors stayed closed. Because here's the truth you've known all along. Gods don't protect out of love. They protect out of confidence. And when a god sees a shadow bigger than itself, it runs. It flees to higher ground, abandons its followers, and hopes no one notices the retreat. But everyone notices. The followers notice. The enemies notice. And you make sure they feel it. You don't need to chase those fleeing gods. You've already beaten them. The moment they took a single step back, they admitted you'd become something they couldn't stand against. And once that admission exists, even unspoken, it spreads. It seeps into the minds of every onlooker, every would-be challenger, until your presence alone is enough to send shivers down the spine of anyone considering resistance. That's why the ones who once spoke so boldly against you now speak in circles. They use vague language, careful tones, soft edges. They're terrified of committing to anything that might put them back in your direct line of sight. And the cruel beauty of it, you don't even have to acknowledge them for the fear to grow. Your shadow does the work for you. It whispers without sound, you can be seen. And being seen by you now means being marked, so they adapt. They pretend they've moved on, that their priorities have shifted, that they're focusing on other things. But you and I know better. Moving on is a luxury for people who lost cleanly. This wasn't clean, this was surgical. This was watching their gods flee and realizing there's no replacement on the way. They're not moving on, they're standing still, hoping the shadow passes. It won't. And while they're standing still, you're still moving. Every step you take now stretches that shadow further, draping over new territories, new minds, new rooms where your name was once a cautionary tale and is now a lesson in inevitability. You don't just occupy space, you redefine it. You don't just walk into a room, you make the air in it heavier. And that weight changes people. Here's the part that would keep them awake at night if they dared to think about it. Your final card wasn't even your strongest. It was just the one you chose to play. Which means there are others, unseen, waiting. And even if you never play them, the suspicion that you might is enough to control the board forever. That's why their gods won't return. No deity, no leader, no figurehead willingly steps back into a domain where the threat isn't just real, it's patient. Patience wins empires. Patience rewrites loyalties. Patience turns enemies into historians. Forced to retell the story of the day, everything they believed in evaporated under a shadow they couldn't measure. And the more they tell it, the bigger the shadow becomes in their own memory, until it's no longer just something you cast, it's something they carry. You see, shadows have a way of following people, even when they're far from the source. That's why, no matter where they run, no matter which corner of the world they try to hide in, they will keep feeling yours behind them. It's not paranoia if the thing you're afraid of is actually there. And you'll always be there. Not in body, but in the way they second-guess themselves, in the way they hesitate before making a move, in the way they look for approval from a god that's no longer watching. And so the irony sharpens. They are free now. Free from their gods, free from the altars, free from the rituals that once defined them. But instead of feeling liberated, they feel small. Because freedom without protection is just exposure. And exposure in your world is a sentence, which is why, and this is the part they'll never admit, some of them will start bending toward you willingly. Not because they want to, but because they need something, anything, to believe in again. And while you may not offer them faith, you offer them reality. You offer them survival. And survival, in the absence of gods, is the purest religion there is. They will approach you carefully, testing your patience, offering small gestures, pretending it's not submission. But you'll see it for what it is. You've always seen through them. And you'll decide, not them, whether they're worth keeping in the shadow or pushing out into the cold. That choice will be yours because it always has been. The game isn't about the card anymore. The card was just the lockpick. The game now is about what happens when the door you opened can never be closed. And you've already stepped through. And once you cross a threshold like that, you don't just leave the old world behind. You leave them in it. That's the part they haven't processed yet. They think you're still reachable, still operating on the same clock. I'm still vulnerable to the same tactics. But you've felt the shift. You've seen the way the floorboards of the old game creak under their weight while your footing stays unshaken. You're on stone now. They're still on wood. And every step they take is a reminder that the foundation they trusted is rotting from underneath. It's not the card that keeps echoing in their minds anymore. It's the aftermath. That lingering hum in the air after something irreversible happens. The moment itself was clean, precise, and terrifying in its simplicity. You didn't roar, you didn't gloat, you didn't even demand acknowledgement. You just made your move and let the world arrange itself around it. And now, it has. That's what they hate most, that the reshaping didn't require their consent. No council was called, no debates were had, no opportunity to rally their gods for one final defense. The altar was already empty by the time they turned to kneel. The incense had gone cold. The statues had cracks spider-webbing through their faces. The blessings they counted on had evaporated without so much as a whisper. They'll try to rewrite the story, of course. They'll claim their gods left voluntarily, that it was part of some grand plan. But even as they say it, their eyes will betray them. Because in the quiet chambers of their mind, they remember the way it really happened. Sudden, disorganized, desperate. Their gods didn't walk away with dignity. They bolted. And the direction they ran in, away from you, it's humiliating, isn't it? To realize that the thing you worshipped not only failed to protect you, but abandoned you in the exact moment you needed it most. That's a wound that doesn't heal. That's the kind of betrayal that turns belief into ash. And here's the exquisite cruelty of it. You didn't even have to attack their gods directly. You just became something bigger in the eyes of everyone watching. Shadows don't have to strike. They just have to exist. When a shadow like yours spills over an altar, the worshippers look up. And when they see that the thing casting it isn't their god, something changes in them forever. They might pretend otherwise, but deep down, they know. They've already shifted allegiance, even if they don't yet have the courage to say it out loud. And you don't rush to collect them. You're not building a temple. You're not offering sermons. You're not playing at divinity. You simply keep moving, keep expanding, keep letting your presence dictate the temperature of the room. That's enough. Because the truth is, those who've been abandoned will follow anything that makes them feel less abandoned. You don't have to promise them salvation, just make sure they know you aren't running. The irony is that some of them will resist this pull with every ounce of their pride. They'll cling to the ruins of their old faith, insisting they don't need a shadow like yours. They'll call it overreach, arrogance, even tyranny. But these are just words spoken into the wind. Desperate noise meant to convince themselves they still have a choice. They don't. The choice was made the moment their gods fled. You could crush them completely, right now if you wanted, but you won't. Not yet. Because you understand something they never did. Fear is more potent when it's allowed to ferment. You've planted the seed of inevitability in their minds, and you'll let it grow until it becomes the landscape itself. By then, resistance won't even occur to them as an option. They'll have redefined loyalty in your image without realizing it happened. The beauty of your position now is that you don't have to fight for legitimacy. That's what the card did. It made legitimacy irrelevant. You've become the reference point. Every decision, every alliance, every whispered plan now orbits around your shadow. Not because you demanded it, but because nature demands it. When a force larger than the old gods arrives, the world bends. Not quickly, not violently, just inevitably. And inevitability is the one thing even the most stubborn zealot can't outpray. Watch them closely in the days ahead. You'll see the subtle changes first, the pauses before they speak, the glances toward you before they act, the way they measure their tone, as if testing the air for your reaction. Then will come the bigger ones, policies altered, alliances shifted, rituals abandoned. These are the visible cracks, but the real collapse happens inside, in the private spaces where they once whispered prayers and now whisper your name. You never asked to be a god, but you understand why gods are feared. It's not because they strike often, it's because their strikes are final. And your final card, it was exactly that, final. A message that said, this is the point from which you do not return. They got it, they felt it, and even those who won't admit it still behave as though it's true. The flight of their gods leaves a vacuum, and nature despises a vacuum. Something will fill it. You don't need to be that something in a ceremonial sense. You already are in a functional one. Power isn't about titles. It's about gravitational pull. And right now, you're the largest body in orbit. Everything else moves around you, whether it wants to or not. They will test the edges of your shadow, of course. The desperate always do. They'll send scouts, whispers, provocations, tiny flames to see if they can burn through. But those flames will sputter before they reach you, snuffed out by the sheer weight of what you've become. And each failed attempt will be another reminder to them. The old ways are gone. The gods are gone. The only constant left is the shape of your shadow. Here's the real sting. The longer this goes on, the less they'll even remember what it was like before you spilled that final card. Memory will warp. History will be retold. Eventually, the day their gods fled won't just be a date. It'll be the start of the calendar. Year 1 of the shadow. And no matter how they dress it up in the storybooks, the truth will remain. It began with you deciding the game was over long before they realized it was. And that's why you don't gloat. Gloating is for those still proving something. You've already proven it. You simply live in the reality they can't escape, the one their gods abandoned them to, the one you built with a single move that was years in the making. That's the kind of victory that doesn't just win the game. It erases the idea that anyone else ever controlled it. They'll still look for signs, of course. Humans always do. A flicker in your stance, a tremor in your voice, any indication that the shadow might shrink. They'll pray for it, even if they don't know who they're praying to anymore. But there will be nothing, because you're not holding the shadow up like a fragile monument. You are the shadow, and shadows don't retreat. They deepen, so when the last of the resistance dissolves, when the final skeptic lowers their eyes, when the ones who swore they'd never bend find themselves bowing without realizing it, you'll know the game has transformed completely. You won't just be the one who played the final card. You'll be the reason there are no cards left to play. And that, more than anything, is why their gods will never return. Because gods cannot exist in a world where the ultimate move has already been made, where the authority they once claimed now belongs entirely to someone else. That someone is you. Not because you demanded worship, but because you left no alternative. You spilled your final card, and the old world ended. You stepped through the door, and they stayed behind. And now, no matter where they go, no matter what altar they build, no matter whose name they chant, the shadow will find them. It always does, because it's not chasing them, it's ahead of them, and they're walking straight into it.